format never starts events. It actually just circles. Oh, hey, I think we're live.
We are live.
We are live. That's very cool.
Welcome, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Today, we're going to talk about the 3 fastest ways to make money with your podcast. And if you would take a second, Doug had stuck a poll up there to let us know, for those of you that are here live. Okay, great. 75% of you currently have podcasts, and a few of you don't, and that's awesome. And this is going to go out to lots of different people who will be in one of 2 camps. Yes, you have a podcast. No, you don't. All the information we have can apply to all of you. So we look forward to getting started. At the end, we will have a Q&A. Once we finish all of our slides, one of the very last slides says Q&A. So when that comes up, and you can, of course, ask questions in the chat as well as we go along, and we'll do the best that we can to answer
In the
them.
meantime, I'm going to be drinking my Corona tea.
Looks like ginger tea.
Oh, that's what it is. It's ginger tea. Another really cool benefit, other than the ways to make money podcasting and the 3 fastest ways that we're going to go over today, we're also going to talk maybe for a moment or two. I think it's important. Maybe you've kind of prepared this. I'm just kind of following your lead here, but I'm thinking that this is a great opportunity for us to maybe share why right now is as good a time as ever, or maybe the best time to do a podcast. And I was joking around with you earlier about, and not joking, but seriously, this has been, last week was the best week for new podcast launch onboarding calls that we have had in probably 6 months. And I can only imagine it is tied very closely to the fact that, no, not that I'm a great salesperson, but because all of the things that are going on in the world. I mean, I joke all the time about the opportunities you have to make money from your pajamas. And now more so than ever, it is so true and so appropriate and so incredibly, it's such a great opportunity to do that right now. So yeah.
And if you're currently in a business that doesn't have flexibility, I mean, this quarantine thing is actually sort of good for us, both in business and in general. And I can imagine for a lot of people that they're in fear of, oh my God, if I can't make money, if I can't leave the house, if I can't work with people one-on-one, in person, or whatever it is that you're doing. And so it's important in this day and age to have some flexibility in how you can generate income and having multiple streams of revenue, even if one of them is still whatever your normal job is. But to create and cultivate a stream of revenue or 10 streams of revenue through a podcast, I mean, there's no better time than now to get started. And you actually have the time to focus on it, most likely if you're quarantined like most people. So
if you haven't had a chance, one more time before we take the poll down, it looks like 75% of you or so have podcasts right now. 25% of you do not. So we're going to talk to both audiences, both mix of those that have launched and those that haven't. But if you haven't answered that poll question, do that, because we're going to end the poll in just a moment so that we can go over to the slide deck that we have prepared for you today. This is some of the most fun stuff when it comes to actually finding success from your podcast. There are so many podcasters that, and we'll go over the statistics, or at least we'll touch upon one statistic. I think this was the statistic on one of the original emails that we sent out. It was something like 85% of those that are podcasting make $0 from their show, $0. And less than 1% of those that are podcasting are making enough to actually sustain a living, not to mention a lifestyle. And the thing that we have struggled through for the first 2 years, or the thing that I struggled through, I don't know if JJ, if you were there.
Different struggles, different struggles.
But I know that I was definitely one of those guys that that was struggling with trying to figure out exactly how to make money from my show. And it literally took me 17 months. And I'll share a little bit of the things that we did. And one of the strategies that we use, it's one of the top 3 that we're going to share with you today. But to actually make close to $300,000 last year from our show. So we're going to share that with you, and some other really cool tools that will help you not only understand that the timing is perfect right now to build a podcast, but not only is the timing great, but the opportunity couldn't be any greater than it is right now to be able to do that. So
especially if you have any kind of expertise, product, or service that you can help people with right now. I mean, if you don't, it doesn't matter, because people are still selling to other people, like case in point, right? But if you have anything that could benefit anyone right now, having a podcast, having an internet-based business, having a stream of income and revenue that acts in this way and that's flexible. And what we're going to talk about today is also, I really want to make sure you understand that our point of view is not about just making money. And I know that today's topic is the 3 fastest ways to make money. But for me, my biggest show is called Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. My first show is Fit to Love. I'm all about about that holistic wellness, the mind, body, soul aspect of living. And one of the things that we will not do is just do a get rich quick kind of thing. Like there's many ways you can make money, like a lot of money, probably right away. But
we could do a get rich slow.
But is it in alignment with who you are, and is it sustainable? You know, that's where it's going to be different. This is about finding the right revenue for you that's sustainable, that's in your zone of genius, and that is life-giving, and that is easy, and that attraction and your frequency, you know, like all that stuff is alignment, so that it's not a struggle because it makes sense for you every day of your life, and it's not something outside of your zone of genius. So we're going to continue. Let's end the poll.
Okay, so we end the poll at 80%. 80% of those of you who are listening right now do have a podcast. 20% of you that are listening do not have a podcast, and we'll talk to both schools right now. Okay, so let me just end that poll. And then I'm going to make our photo really small in the lower right-hand side of the screen. I think that's how we do that. Let me take a look. I'll just press that over here just so we're seeing that live on that side. But let's see. Let me go over to the slide deck, and I will start that presentation.
Here we go.
Doing this. Here we go, everybody. All right, cool. So three fastest ways to make money with your podcast. And of course, I'm Doug, and that's JJ, in case you had any confusion of who of us was.
If you don't know who we are.
So let me just go over these really quickly, because I think that we come to these webinars with a goal in mind, and we want to make sure that you understand what our promise is to you. Number one, we want to provide a worthwhile investment of your time during this webinar. We want to make sure that the time and the energy that you are putting into this is worthwhile for you, and you get some really good nuggets of information. To outline and explain the area in which podcasters are missing opportunities to monetize over and over and over again. Now, keep in mind, over the last 2.5 years or so, we've launched over 100 shows with our clients, and the majority of those come to us with the mentality of advertising and sponsorship, or maybe some other short-term gains, short-term ways to make money are the things that they're focused on to monetize their show. They're missing out on huge opportunities, as I'm sure we'll share with you, again, 3 of those today, and to share examples and strategies of different podcast business plans. We had sat down maybe a month or 2 ago before we did our first webinar on this, and we discovered how many different ways that we have actually to monetize our shows. And we came up with, I don't remember how many there were, but there were.
Well, we had seen something about the 21 ways to monetize your podcast, and between you and I think we had 20 of them. So we really have done pretty much everything you can do to monetize. I mean, and we're continuing to make some. In fact, you could probably even add one to that list with your new show, but we'll talk about that later. Okay,
we'll talk about, yes. Wait a minute, which new show? The Mustang? But yeah. Okay, yeah. All right, got it. Yeah, that
and
was
I
the 22nd.
You nobody else is doing that.
I know nobody else is doing that. No. So we are always continuing to update the ways that we're able to make money. And maybe it's not one specific thing that you can do to monetize your show, but maybe a combination of several things that can create an income stream. And imagine an income stream that you're able to create or generate $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month of income. This is extra income in addition to the income that you're running through right now. And the way to do that is through using your podcast is actually a integral part of your business model. And we'll get all into all of that later. So we're going to share examples and strategies of different podcast business plans.
And we do want to answer any questions that you have at the end of the presentation. So we'll be sure to sort of move along. So our mutual understanding, please, if you could provide your attention free from distractions, we want to get in and get out, right?
Put that down.
So yeah, if you could not be texting or having another computer screen going on, that'd be great. Leave behind any limiting beliefs that you have that are holding you back from believing this can work. And I think at this point in time, with what's going on in the world, I would say that people are more open than ever to find solutions. And that's what we're about, finding a solution for you. And that you're open to the possibilities presented to help you take your business or podcast to the next level. So quickly, we're going to go through our story. Go ahead to the next screen.
All right, let me share a little bit about this, because in 2013, I sat down with my financial planner and we tried to come up with what was my next plan. At that point, I had spent 30 years, believe it or not, as a bar mitzvah MC. I had done about 2,000 bar bat mitzvahs in my career, and as the MC. And while I loved it, I didn't really feel like that was the thing, the resting spot for me where I was going to continue on. So we talked about an opportunity, not sure exactly what it was going to be. So that was March in 2013. In August of that same year, I met a guy, his name is Ryan Estes, and he was speaking at a National Association for Catering Events event in Chicago. And as he was talking, it wasn't what he was saying, but how he was saying it. And I said, I could do that. I could become a professional speaker. So I asked him a whole bunch of advice at the end of his speech. He shared with me the name of his speaking coach, who is Jane Atkinson, who I ended up hiring. Jane explained to me that, that I needed to write a book in order to be that really first thought of, that top of mind speaker. And so I wrote a book called Nice Guys Finish First. The podcast came as a result of me wanting a promotional platform for that book. And so when I launched the Nice Guys on Business podcast in February of 2015, so 5 years ago, the idea was I was going to use it to promote my speaking business. I was going to use it to promote my coaching and training business. And I was going to use it really to promote my book. What happened a couple of years into into the show is a guy named Lou Diamond, and we'll talk about Lou a little bit later on, and Lou may even be a part of this webinar today. Lou came on as a guest on my show, and then he was so captivated by the way that we were doing things, the system that we had him in, that he said, hey, can you help me launch a podcast the way that you've launched yours? So was born Turnkey Podcast. Lou was our first client. He's been our most successful client, or one of our most successful clients in the sharing of our system and what he has actually done in the monetization side. And he made me think, hey, if Lou can do this, I know many other people can. And so we really did create a system that was geared around not just the idea of creating a template for your show and launching a show. I think that there's a lot of different sources and resources that you can go to do that. But in order to launch a show that could help you make money, build influence, and grow a community, those were the three components for us. And so was born Turnkey Podcast at that point. So now 5 years later, and I love to tell a little bit of this story. The Nice Guys on Business has 3.5 million downloads, probably more at this point, downloaded in over 175 countries. We have about 1,040 episodes in place right now. And of those 1,000 episodes, over 700 of them are interviews. So I looked at it and thought there is opportunity, so many opportunities within the show itself, whether it's building my community and sharing my message with my community and sharing my products and services with them. But a lot, what you're going to hear a little bit later on, is the majority of our income has come from those 700 interviews. And I'll explain a little bit of that as we get into that a little bit later.
Okay, my turn. So I also had a book, and I also, more importantly, had a lot of passion and interest in sharing a lot of the different tools that I was using in my life with my clients. But my clients, because I was doing health and fitness, and most people just wanted to lose weight. They didn't really care about preserving their joints. They didn't care about long-term health in a way of, they just wanted like the results right now. And so I wrote the book Fit to Love because it was my story on how I use self-care and how I actually come at it from a whole different point of view than the majority of the fitness industry. And when I heard about podcasting, I learned about it in March of 2014. I'm sorry, 2014. Yeah, 2014. And then I decided 6 months later, when I learned about it, that I was going to launch a show around the book. Same thing, not necessarily to sell the book, but to give myself a platform of testing my material. I started my podcast with the idea that I actually wouldn't make money in the first 2 years because I wanted to test out the material. As a personal trainer, I was sort of boxed into one way of doing things or what people expected of me. And podcasting gave me an opportunity to explore talking about psychology, talking about spirituality, talking about law of attraction, doing cooking classes, doing exercise classes, talking about alternative medicine in a new way. I wanted the freedom to explore how I wanted to show up in the world and how the world would respond to me. And you'll maybe hear more about my story later. I don't want to go too in depth. On the end of this, Fit to Love was a 6-day-a-week show. It was video and it was audio. And after 2 years, I really used it as research and market research for myself, as well as, again, testing. I believe that you should go into everything with a test mentality because you ultimately don't know when something, I bet you no one knew right now that all of the paper companies would need to make as much product as they're making right now. Nobody probably could have anticipated that. So you just never know how something is going to go. And there's room for allowing it to be an organic experiment. So my 6-day-a-week show, after 2 years, I realized the content was so good. I listened to my own show. I loved it so much. I was excited about my content, but I wasn't getting the kinds of feedback that I wanted. I was making sales. I was getting clients, but it wasn't again at the level at which I thought it should be based on the content. So I took the 350 shows in the 6 days a week, and I made 6 different shows, which again, I wouldn't recommend for the average person. And I never would have gone in saying, I want to make.
No, don't recommend 6 shows.
I never would have gone in saying, let's make multiple shows at one time. But I did, but I tested out my material. I went like kind of hardcore, lots of great material for in a short period of time. And then I said, let me rebrand this. I had a message. It was an intuitive message that they can't find me. So I took my 6 days a week, cut them up into 6 different shows, repurposed, didn't do all new episodes, repurposed. Okay, very efficient use of time. And I launched my first show, which was the only show that didn't have any products. I had no lead generation. I had nothing to offer anybody. It was my spirituality day, my Freedom Fridays. And I named it Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. And I launched it at the end of October or beginning of November of 2016. And by January of 2017, I had built a list of people who could not stop asking me for more content. They wanted to be involved. They wanted my help. And it was one of those shockers because all of a sudden the show that I had no products for, all of a sudden I had the response of, oh my God, your show is so good. I want to learn more. It's changing my life. Products and programs for my community.
So just keep in mind, as JJ is saying right here, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just want you to keep in mind as you're listening to the rest of the webinar, the idea of flexibility in what you are doing. Not flexibility is in pivoting from a completely different angle from what you're presenting to your community right now, but the idea of actually listening to your community instead of going to your community and saying, I have these 27 things for you, or even I have this one thing for you, I want you to buy it from me. Maybe look at it from a perspective of, let me create the content, create the show, and find out what my community actually wants from me. When you do that, when you build a business based upon what you know your market wants, you have a winning proposition for a product right out of the gate that you know is going to do well.
Which we'll talk about a little bit later. So basically, I have 3 books, over 2.5 million downloads, again, over 125 countries, over 600 episodes, multiple streams of income, and I have a whole bunch of PR.
And we don't share those stats with you to say, oh my God, look at our ego. We share those stats with you to show you I struggled for the longest time with my show. And even though we had a pretty good amount of downloads, nearly 20,000 downloads at month 17 when we were still struggling, we weren't making any money. So the downloads aren't what's related to the success. It's the experience that the downloads and the books and the community and the failures, this experience that the failures actually shared, brought us to, is what has enabled us to become the teachers that we are today for this world.
And be clear, there are people that have way more downloads than we do, way more. Some of our friends have a lot more downloads. One of our dearest friends has a lot more downloads with his very first show. But I'll tell you, it's not about downloads. It's about conversion. And it's about, if you're a community-based show and you have no community, then it's not very successful no matter how many downloads you have. If you don't have to have, in one of the business models we're going to teach you tonight, you don't need any audience, none, zero, zilch. You can make a lot of money with nobody listening.
And if you're listening to this and you have a podcast that's about to launch saying, I don't have 3.5 million downloads, 175 countries, I don't have 700 interviews, how can I ever get to the level that these guys have gotten to? Know that one of the shows, and I'm going to share, this is the one that I'm going to share with you, the business model that we get to in a few moments. Know that you can have literally no episodes, no interviews, no experience, no downloads, no nothing, and make a lot of money from your show. And now, how is that even possible?
We'll tell you, but I have one too.
Oh,
no, I didn't make as much money as you did, but I did make money.
I'm like, you have what?
I did make money. Okay, but before we get to the 3 fastest ways to make money podcasting, we do need to go over sort of a basic little framework of what the basic podcast needs are up front, because this isn't about just sort of, running really quickly into, I need to have a podcast and I'm going to follow one of these 3 ways. The information we're going to share right now is for everyone, those of you that don't have a show and those of you that do have a show. Then when we move into the 3 fastest ways, I want you to identify where you are with what we're going to share with you. I want you to grade yourself. As we go through the next couple of slides, do I have this? Am I already done with that? Am I clear about this? And if you don't, whether you've launched or you haven't, this is something to implement also so that it's sustainable. We can get you money fast, but we want it to be sustainable growth. So
I'm looking forward to seeing what these basic upfront needs are.
Well, the basic upfront need is building a business plan for your podcast.
Right.
Now, if you've already launched and you didn't build the business plan for your podcast, you can pivot within the same podcast. You don't need to rebrand it. You don't need to do anything differently. You just have to start thinking about it differently. So Doug started Turnkey Podcast. I'm sorry, Doug started Nice Guys on Business podcast, and Nice Guys on Business was to sell the book. Well, what is it, 2 years in?
Yep.
18 months in, they had an idea. And from the Nice Guys platform built BizWiz. So I'll talk about that.
So do you want me to get into actually how this made money, or do you just want me to talk about the structure of the show?
No, actually, let's wait. We'll use it. We'll come back to it
Okay.
when we do the number one fastest way to make money podcasting. So we're going to talk about guest to client. That's the first one. But know that.
Well, you just brushed over that.
I know. No.
You can't just do that and tease them. You got to tell them what this guest to client is, or you got to say, let's leave that alone and come back later.
Here's what you need to know from this slide. These 4 different shows. So one of them is Doug's and 3 of them are mine. And but they all have different business plans. The BizWiz podcast is literally was created from and built from the idea of the very first way, the fastest way for you to make money with your podcast, which we're going to talk about in step number 1 of the fastest way. Something to whine about literally was a passion project by Michael Neely and Melanie Benson, even though we were sitting at the table too, but at the time, you think 2 co-hosts. And that podcast, passion project, has become a way to write off a birthday trip, a trip to Italy, a trip anywhere in the world where whatever you love doing, you do some interviews and all of a sudden, it's going to be, you're creating momentum around the show and it's a tax deduction. Fit to Love was my first show. Again, and that had a whole different purpose. I told you that was literally for market testing. And then my Inner Circle, and you can't even find that because that's my membership.
It's a membership.
And I only launched that in December because it was finally the time to launch something like that. It was finally, there was enough engagement, enough people in all of my free things that I thought, and enough people wanting more that I thought, okay, it's time to launch my Inner Circle, which is now thriving. So 4 different business plans for a podcast. You are going to have ideas about what yours is going to look like going in. It may not stay that way, but as long as you have a little bit of clarity about what you want from it and how it potentially you want it to work, then it's easier to sort of navigate the waters as you continue to go on.
And also, not to give a plug for anything that I do, but I will just briefly, it's also to have the right person that can interpret what you possibly can do with what you have your hands on. If you're a business coach and you get into this, you might want to sell your business coaching services to your community, but there may be 17 other opportunities that you have that you're not thinking of because the only thing you're focused on is how do I get my consulting services or my coaching services into the hands of the people that are in my community, ignoring a couple of things that you have to go through in order to get there to build your coaching business.
I'll just say that a lot of people start out with a podcast, and rightfully so, and I'm sure it works for many people, but I also equally know it doesn't work for the same amount of people, where they go in thinking with the end in mind, here's the product or service, I'm going to work backwards and build my show. That's what Doug did with his book. I literally didn't go in with anything in particular to sell. That could be what Fit to Love is about. But when I've seen that model a couple of times recently, especially with some of our mastermind members who just joined, it doesn't work for them. So I just want to make sure you understand that with the end in mind and working backwards is not always the right thing to do with a live, organic communication and relationship with a podcast audience. When you're doing a marketing, a campaign of some kind, and you're very targeted about what you're doing, you can test it out because it's not a live organic thing. Yes, you're communicating, but a podcast has a different kind of energy. It's a whole different beast, and it's going to be amazing when you click into the right thing for you. So another thing that all podcasts need to be very clear about, and you learn this as you go on. Now, if you can start out better, if you can start out stronger than we did, you won't take as much time to learn this lesson. It's about, after you determine your business plan, it's about having clarity about your message. And I don't just mean, what are you trying to get people to do? I'm talking about your message. In my Inner Circle, and Doug and I have done several podcast episodes in my Inner Circle on a book by Gay Hendricks called The Big Leap.
Great book.
And one of the things that I think is the most important aspects that we've been talking to about some of the people who've just joined our mastermind that we'll offer to you at the end, so I'm going to tell you about it at the end, is that again, at the beginning, we're not about you just making money to make money. We're about you making money in your zone of genius. What is the right thing for you? The right ways, the right revenue streams, the right relationships, the right product offerings, the right message for your community. You're not some host that's supposed to keep everybody happy and figure out what they want so you can deliver it. This is literally coming from the inside out. What is it that you want to deliver?
Oh, and that plain vanilla podcast host, man, that sucks. I mean, who wants to be that guy or that girl? I know I didn't want to. I wanted to create a little controversy. I like the idea of getting maybe ruffling some feathers along the way. There's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, one of the quotes that my co-host Strickland and I always talk about is that we refer to Howard Stern. People that love Howard Stern listen to him an hour a day. People that hate Howard Stern listen to him 2 hours a day. It's because you want people to tune in for a little bit of the conflict. So don't be afraid to share your opinion. I don't mean get in arguments with your guests purposely, but I'm just saying don't be afraid to be a person, to be who you are, to share your colors on your show.
Yeah, and to know what your gifts are. Okay. And then the last thing to understand is that there are so many different ways to monetize. And we're going to focus on, in the next screen, we're going to focus on these 2 shows, because these 2 shows made money before they ever were launched. BizWiz was Doug's. He gave me some of that idea, although Health and Wealth happened differently. And we'll talk about that. But again, we don't want you to think that I can't make money until I launch, and I can't make money until my audience is big. Those are myths. And we're here to prove them incorrect, because we both have done it. All right. Now, it took me a little while to learn and to pivot and to do things differently, but I now can speak from Health and Wealth. I made thousands of dollars before I ever launched it. And BizWiz, same thing for Doug, although he made way more than I did. So let's talk about the 3 fastest ways to make money with your podcast. I'm going to hand it over to Doug, and I will hope you'll bring me in for Health and Wealth. But go ahead, Doug.
Okay, so let me talk about this, because I think that this was my aha moment in podcasting. So we had created a podcast, Nice Guys on Business podcast, in, like I said, March of 2015. The idea behind it was, okay, let's figure out the best way for me to sell my books, my speaking, and my coaching and consulting services. And 17 months later, we found out we had exactly $0 in the bank as a result of it. However, we knew the idea of interviewing guests was popular. We knew the idea of interviewing people and talking to them about their areas of expertise was essential in order to teach what we do and what they do to our community, and to build a show properly. So what we thought about doing is we went to this conference, and it was called New Media Summit. And a good buddy of ours, Steve Olsher, runs the conference. And we thought about what would be the best way to take the people, the attendees that are at this conference, and figure out not only how to interview them, but how to turn these people that are at this conference into clients. Now, at that point, we were, like I said, about 17 months into our Nice Guys on Business program. And we were probably about 2 or 3 months behind on making sure that the guests that were applying to the show were actually getting on the show. But there were so many great people that I was meeting at the conference. And I'm thinking, how do I get all of these people onto my Nice Guys on Business podcast? So I called my partner Strickland the morning of the conference. I said, I have an idea. Let's create an entirely new show just for the people that are at this conference. So there was 150 people at the conference that were guests there, that were attendees. And I thought, let's figure out a way to focus just on these 150 people. Let's create a show just around them. So everybody at the conference I was able to touch over the course of the 3 or 4 days that I was at the conference. I invited all 150 people onto the show. 118 people I actually qualified at the show, at the conference, to be somebody that would be a really good guest for me to have on the show. Of the 118 people, 40 people actually applied to be on the show. You know, they jumped through the hoops of they listened, they rated and reviewed the show, they subscribed to the show, they bought a microphone and they had quality sound. They shared with me their plans to promote the podcast episode. And then what's going on there?
Keep going. No,
okay, you're answering the question. Okay, so we had, sorry, JJ was reaching across the desk to get to the keyboard. So I thought, okay, as I'm getting down into these numbers, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this could be a really good opportunity. I want these people to hear about, I want them to hear about what we do also, because now that Lou Diamond had approached us and thought, how can I be a podcaster also? I'm thinking, maybe these guests that are applying to my show, maybe I could qualify them to see if they would be open to podcasting, because this was like a new venture for me. So of the 150 people that were there, 118 people applied, 40 people qualified by going through the steps that I wanted them to. I turned 7 of those people into $7,500 paying clients plus production. I made over $40,000 just from the people that were at that conference. So $40,000 before I'd even launched episode 1. before I had even gotten one person to promote my episode, before we even put out our welcome episode, before we really even had put everything together that we thought would be a really good way to launch a show. And now we came home, we put the show together. We released all the interviews. We released the interviews. We had 40 of them. We released them with all of the reviews that they shared, and the show did really well on Apple Podcasts or iTunes at the time. So it was one of those shows that the conference actually helped us create, not because they were promoting it, but because we used the conference as our way to really work this group of people into our programs. And so, like I said, we launched 7 shows out of those people that were there, turning our guests into clients because we qualified them prior to them coming onto the show.
The guest to client model doesn't rely on having a larger or responsive community. So you don't need anybody, right? So Doug's show didn't even launch. And I'll also say about my show, so Health and Wealth, how I utilize that, because for some of you, the guest to client model isn't going to work as well or as easily right away. Maybe your brand, you're having a hard time finding. For a lot of you, it's going to work easier than you think it is, right? But then for some of you, it might not be the right way in. So there's another way to sort of figure out. For me, when I launched Health and Wealth, I added a sponsorship option at the bottom of my intake form for my guests. And because I'd already had success on my other podcasts, now you don't have to have a success with your podcast. You could have a big email list. You could have a big social media following, or you could have just a high converting social media following.
Or you could have a conference just like I went to. Let's say that you have a conference that you have in mind that you're going to. You could go around and specifically talk about lead generation through well, you don't want to share with them that you're using it as a lead generation tool, but you can share with them the idea of you launching or you having a podcast and you would like to have them on as part of the launch episodes for your show. And you could have them go through a series of, I don't want to say hoops because that makes it sound negative, a process. It's a system. We put people through the system, rate and review, have a microphone, subscribe to the show, tell me what your plans are to share it on social media. Those were the 4 hoops that people had to go through in order to get on, at that point, the BizWiz podcast. We didn't even talk about necessarily what product or service that I had in mind. All I knew was they had a message to share with my community that I was going to launch the show with. And that was it. That was good enough for them because they were happy to be able to be promoting their message. I did have, fortunately, the Nice Guys on Business podcast as a way to promote BizWiz, which also helped me. But to have a network of podcasts help you, that's fairly easy nowadays. I want to say everybody has a podcast. Many people have podcasts, and for you to promote is not a huge step.
So the first strategy is guest to client, and you can use it in a couple different ways. How I also started to use it, now that I think about it, is I started to do live coaching on air. And it wasn't live on air, but it was live on the show. So I would give a free session with me through, I mentioned that here's a link to sign up if you want to have a free live coaching session on air with me. And then I would get the person, they'd have a free coaching session. People in the audience could hear how I coach. And at the end, I would give them an offer, not necessarily on the show, but after the show was over, I would tell them, here's how I'd like to work with you if you're interested. And I've converted some of those people into clients. So in terms of there is a way to use it no matter what your model is. It's just finding the way to use it. Some are going to be more obvious than others, but definitely guest to client model is a really big money. And
just one other word about that. Obviously, you all that are tuning into this, you are not podcast producers. So it's not your role to promote your podcast production company to those guests that are coming on your show. But whatever it is, fill in the blank here, your services, whatever your services are, if you're not only inviting guests on with the idea of they have a great message to share with your community, but how is it that the services that you provide can become services that they buy from you? If you qualify people and you bring people on the show with those 2 thoughts in mind, how will they enhance your community's world, and how will they also enhance your world? You can have a dual purpose of having a guest on a show.
Okay, so number 2, joint ventures and affiliates. So there's more questions. We can answer that at the end. So with joint ventures and affiliates, you're leveraging both parties' assets and communities. So what was interesting is I was on Doug's show probably 3 times. And after that, I learned that his way of getting clients was guest to client, and he never once sold me.
She was mad I didn't pitch her.
He never pitched me. And I thought, hey, how come he never pitched me? Now, I already had a show, so I wasn't a qualified guests. So we have a question. Do you qualify guests? Yes. He qualifies guests through, and then how? Go ahead. You want to answer that?
Sure. Well, right now, and it's Jazzwinder. I don't know your name. So if your first name, you want to type it in there, that's great. But if not, it's okay. So with my guests, the way that I qualify guests is I actually have a preliminary pre-qualification application at this point. Now that we are very, very deep into our podcast run, 1,040 episodes, we get more applications, more people that inquire about being on our guest than we did in the beginning. Right now, I send them a preliminary pre-qualification application. Before, I would just exchange emails with them and then ask them a series of questions that are related to not only would they be a good guest for my audience to hear from, but questions that would also tell me if I feel like they would be a good guest for my business. So if you are a business consultant, you may you may say things like, when was the last time you brought in a coach to share a message with your company? You may ask, I don't know, any series of questions. If you're a health and wellness expert, it might be on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is health and wellness in your life? You can ask questions that will help you understand if they're qualified. They won't even understand why you're necessarily asking the question. It's giving you information and also giving you information to determine whether they would be a good fit for your audience as well.
And I do it too. My new show, Health and Wealth, I ask them if they're willing to be vulnerable to share a story. And I ask them about their health regimen, because my initial goal with Health and Wealth was to sort of model Doug's and to do, are you going to type it? It's the big one. Okay. To model Doug's guest to client and take, people who have succeeded financially, but were still in need on the health side, or had some negative repercussions from their wealth building in their health, and they still were sort of on the mend or wanting to make changes. And it's changed a couple times. I mean, I held it for almost 2 years before I launched it because I wasn't completely ready to, or wasn't clear about. It's okay, baby. Why don't you just, okay. Sorry, we have cats, and that I just decided not to put in the room, and they, So anyway, so back to joint ventures and affiliates, and health and wealth. So I know that the guest to client model for some people is going to be a very easy way to implement. For some of you, it's going to be a little bit more creative, like with me. In order to get some more clients, I was in guest to client. I was interviewing, I was coaching for free people on the show. So I was giving value to my audience. Plus I was uncovering a need for the person. And even just anybody who signs up for that is a pre-qualification that they need help and that they want the help from me. So there's also a way to do that too. So now back, so joint ventures and affiliates. Let's talk about your most successful joint venture and affiliate to date is still probably conference.
New Media Summit. So we've developed some great relationships with people. Had it not been for my podcast, that I never would have met. So one, and I'll talk about 2 really easy examples. I went to do this conference as an attendee and discovered that there was a need for some of the skills that I have at this conference. So I approached actually it backs up even before then. Steve Olsher was a guest on my show, the Nice Guys on Business podcast, and he asked me one of those questions that at the end of the question, he could have knocked me over with a feather. The question was, what are my listeners, but how many listeners do I have? But the true question was, how much money are you making from your podcast? And I said, I'm not making any money from my podcast. So he said, well, statistically, if you have the amount of listeners that you have, you should be making X amount of dollars from your show. And I wasn't even close. I wasn't even on the radar screen. I'm like, okay, well, what do I need to do in order to do that? So he shared with me a couple of pieces of information that I'm like, okay, so that was the beginning of the relationship that I started with Steve. As a result of that initial interview that he came on my show, I was invited to a conference, the conference that eventually became the BizWiz podcast for me, which again, evolved to about $40,000 in income. And again, none of that would have come had I not had this podcast to even interview Steve. So
the easiest joint venture. So let's go through in a situation where Doug wasn't focused on joint ventures and affiliates at that time. He is now. So now what it looks like is, hey, let's do something together. We have business that kind of fit each other. And then you spend a little time having a conversation and figure out how you can both leverage each other's lists, community, podcasts, services in order to make money together. And so when it comes, so for instance, I want to give an example of one of our newest mastermind members who he has a storytelling podcast, and his expertise is in storytelling. And we'd had a conversation with another person interested in the mastermind like the day before, who was talking about possibly with his studio setup doing audiobooks. And first of all, I could use him. Second of all, half of your clients could probably use him. And then I connected the two of them so they can both start making money right now. So now if they're both going to be in the mastermind, and they can start to create that, we can help them guide that relationship to really maximize. I mean, they can find it on their own as well, but we can really dive into how do we make the most amount of sense of the different offerings that they have and the cross-pollination of their communities and their offers.
What I'm always amazed by is when people have guests come on their show, and, even if you have 100 episodes out of your show, and let's say that you're doing, 70% of your show is interviews, they have 70 people that they have developed a relationship with. And if they're not taking advantage of the relationship, I don't mean taking advantage of the person, but I mean really capitalizing, maximizing the relationship by looking at ways in which, that person has enough information that you feel compelled to share their message with your community. Why wouldn't they have the same level of talent to be able to work with you to have a relationship and build a project or build a business or build something together? So everyone that comes on my show, I forget just guest to client strategy. Yes, that does work, and that it continues to work. I still close a lot of deals for my podcast production business that way. But looking at the opportunities of the 700 plus guests out of the 1,000 plus episodes, my entire network has come from every business opportunity that I have. I don't have to look very far to find a business opportunity. I just have to look at who was my last guest on the show. I'm always looking for what is the best way to maximize the relationship, not just to serve me, but how can I best serve that guest that comes on my show so that maybe it can benefit. Maybe there's a way to benefit that guest that comes on the show that he can capitalize or she can capitalize, and I can as well. Joint venture partnerships are a huge, huge opportunity that most podcasters are missing out on completely.
And not everyone's going to be a joint venture partner. You're going to find your strategic partners, your upstream, your downstream, who you give to, who gives to you, how you fit into their model, and then just referrals. And on the affiliate side, I will say, affiliates, sometimes depending on the offer, depending on the content of your show and your audience, could take a little bit longer to make like a lot of money. But our friends, Joe and Matt, who have Evergreen Profits podcast, they did $1.8 million 2 years ago in just affiliate marketing.
Big money.
And because they were selling some tech thing. So I'm sure it wasn't a cheap thing, but it was, again, in a year, just 1.8 million off of affiliates, not joint ventures, affiliates selling someone else's product. And they were doing that on their show. And we have their system, and we're going to use their system. We already started, and we're going to share that system with our mastermind members in order for them to maximize just normal organic SEO search traffic to get people to your blog and to your product offers, but also in how to sell other people's stuff. Like, so for instance, one of the products on my show, I interviewed Clint Ober of Earthing, and Earthing products are flying out the door because people heard the show. I did another show with Meryl Hemingway, who also is with Earthing now in a way, and she's been supporting them. And so those two shows have put thousands of dollars in my pocket from a affiliate commission that I get, and it's evergreen. So it sits there forever. And as long as people go through the link, they're going to get my discount, which is a really big one for the package that we put together with it. And there's ways to do it, right? You don't just want to get a discount code. The discount code, someone could get anyone's discount code. We put an actual package. It was a JJ special package that they can't get anywhere else, which ensures that they're going to use that link, and that I'm going to get the percentage back. So anyway, affiliates is a little, again, I don't want to say it's little. Joe and Matt, it wasn't little, but it can be, a little bit amount of revenue. It can be evergreen. And I do that with a couple different products that I believe in. Not with everybody. You don't want to water it down so much that you're always selling somebody else's stuff and no one knows what you really believe in. But again, finding the right joint venture partners and affiliates for you, as well as just referrals, right? Having a network of people that refer to you, even if there's no money exchange, just this sort of understanding that I have your back and you have mine. You're the expert in this field and I'm the expert in this field. So anyway, it's a really fast way. And how you could use this right now, whether you have a podcast or not, is to look at the people that you do refer to often, or the people that you would like to refer to often, some kind of complimentary service to something you're doing right now, where you guys can get together and then have some kind of, again, joint venture product or launch or a co-launch, or I would package myself with Dr. Alan Peters and Jeannie Peters. I packaged myself with Lisa Thomas, right? So my joint ventures were more in-person, packaged with other people kind of things. And now I'm doing it on the podcast with other people through doing classes, joint classes together where we're promoting it on both of our lists. So anyway, there's many ways to do it. Just know that you could look into your current database of people and find a revenue stream right now through joint ventures and affiliates. And I definitely recommend it's something that you focus on to make this an easy, ongoing revenue stream and referral base, customer referral base for you that doesn't require you to spend any money on ads.
And keep in mind also, joint venture partnerships, while there may have been someone that you might have felt was unattainable or unreachable because maybe they were the icons in your industry or the go-to influencers in your space, keep in mind that when you invite them on your show, you are really equaling the playing field. You're giving them an opportunity to share their message with your community, big or small, it doesn't matter. Because keep in mind that right now, while you have no or very small community, if you haven't or just recently launched a podcast, at some point down the road, that show that only had 50 listeners per episode could eventually have 5,000 listeners, 10,000 listeners per episode. And those episodes are still made available online. So it's not like you have to focus on the fact that, oh, I have nothing right now. So those influencers can become alliances with you, and those can become the ultimate people that will, be part of your joint venture relationships that you build.
Okay, number 3. So now the first 2 ways actually don't rely on you having any community. You don't even have to be launched. You don't even have to have a podcast, actually, right? I mean, you can be in process of a podcast, but you don't have to have a podcast. This one, you also don't have to have a podcast, but this one is about cultivating time-sensitive and group-specific offers to your already invested community if a community is something that you have.
This is something that she is a master at.
And it doesn't have to be through your podcast, because you're not going to get a huge community very quickly. But what you may have, so I'm thinking of a coach that I know very well, and she's tried to launch a podcast a couple of times, and I don't know if she's just been unsuccessful or just bored or too much work on her plate and she's want to simplify it. But she's got a huge following on social media, on her email list, right? So again, I'm going to apply this to a podcast, and I'm going to tell you why a podcast community and building one on a podcast is better. It really is, because because your community loves you. I mean, I listened on the phone to the phone calls that you have and the emails exchanged between you and your community members, and I'm so envious of the fact that how connected JJ has connected so well with her community. I think and I know I'm stealing some thunder here, but I mean, the beauty of it is when you build a community that tunes in week after week after week after week and shares your show and shares tells everybody about it.
And then you go on social media and you're like, you've seen an entire debate and JJ wasn't even a part of it, although her name was brought up every other comment. The beauty of it is that when you build a community that is engaged,
knows, likes, and trusts you.
Yeah, when they know you, they like you, and they trust you, they're going to come back over and over and over again because they love you. And when you're building a podcast, the best part about the podcast is that you have this community that is cohesive, that is aligned, that wants you. And if you put those people into a live event, you don't even have to sell them. I watch this happen over and over again with JJ's community, is that the people that are put into the room, you have such a limited amount of sharing and selling that you need to do, because they already believe you. They already know you. If my community is nowhere near as engaged as JJ's, because I have a different business model for how I've created my podcast. So anyway, the time sensitive and the group specific offers are really, really something that JJ does successfully.
So talking about how the fastest ways to make money with your podcast is, you could also, if you don't have a podcast yet, this could be applied to whatever community group you have, whether it be on social media, somewhere, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or on your email list, or if you've got some other thing I don't know about, right? Some kind of live stream. You can take a live streaming situation. You could create a couple episodes on a live stream and make an offer. So for instance, if anyone right now has anything that would be helpful for people, for healing viruses, for connecting people, for stopping fear, for meditation, for any kind of, you have toilet paper, like if you have anything right now, you could turn to your group of people, wherever they are, and you could make a time-sensitive offer.
Well, let me give an example. Like right now, with this whole virus craziness and all the hype that's out there, you know, the reason that we had one of our busiest weeks last week is because everybody is freaking home right now. So they're like, hey, this is the best time for me to build a podcast. Now, I'm not telling you to be what's the word when you
scarcity.
I don't want you to do something that is like, hey, this is a terrible time because you shouldn't be doing this right now. You're creating the opportunity for someone to take advantage of a service that you already offer. Now you're just reminding them that you have the offer. So I would say that when you're in a situation that you are right now, for me not to offer an opportunity for someone to let me show you how to make money from your pajamas. This is something that actually works. It works for you, virus or no virus, it doesn't matter. But since you're home already, why don't we take advantage of this time? So talk about a time-sensitive offer right now. The ability for me to pivot so quickly by promoting my services on my podcast to my community that has already been tuning into me for 5 years. It's like, hey, now is a great opportunity for you to launch a podcast. Think about the positive use of your time. You think about the loss of income that you've incurred over the last couple of weeks just because of this. Think about the loss of income that you're going to incur because of conferences and all of the things that have been closing down right now. How great an opportunity, very time sensitive, but how specifically focused I can get. I don't need to create an entire campaign for this. I just need to talk about it on my show. I just need to send out one email to my list that I created from my show. These are the time sensitive offers that are worth gold and opportunistic. I don't want you to turn into an opportunistic person, but look at the opportunity in every situation that's out. And there is one right now.
Right. And it doesn't have to be time sensitive like what's going on right now, just group specific. What do they want? The benefit of having a community, whether it be on social media, but I'm going to say the podcast community wins. The podcast community, the reason why is because podcasting is such an intimate medium. You are in their ears. You are talking into a microphone. You are having a conversation, almost like they feel connected to you when you build a podcast community. And even when your community doesn't buy anything from you and they don't do anything, they still love you and they call you. Doug's community calls them all the time. But you can create something specifically for what they want and have that conversation. Instead of going and thinking, I'm going to sell you what I have, go in thinking, how can I serve you? What can I create that you want and that you'll buy? So we're going to have to move on. We're going to go a little bit over the hour because most of our webinars are normally 90 minutes. This won't be quite 90 minutes, probably more like 75. But
let's just skip this page because these are just the 17 other ways that you can monetize your podcast. But I'm telling you, there's 21 ways to successfully monetize your podcast.
And more. So, so hopefully you have an idea about the fastest way you can monetize your show now, whether you've launched or not. And we're going to offer a few things to you right now. We encourage you to stay just to listen to what they are. They may apply, they may not, but why not learn from this and be able to utilize it in your own business? So we did a live event, Doug and I, and we got some really great feedback about just uncovering, and people in the room had already launched their show. A lot of them, some of them hadn't yet, but really understanding what the benefits of this medium is, and that now is the time to get involved. Now is the time to start doing this, not because of the you being quarantined. So if you don't have a podcast yet, this is for you. And because most of you already have one, we will be very quick about this. So we have 3 offers on the table. The first two are for people who have not launched yet. Okay. You have not launched yet. And that's only a few of you here right now. Offer 1 is a do-it-yourself step-by-step program that includes a personalized strategic plan, but it's mostly a do-it-yourself. The second one is that do-it-yourself with all the bonuses with a little bit of our time to help you make a more strategic plan for you to make the right podcast business plan. The third one, we're not even going to really offer it to you. We're just going to invite you to apply if this is right for you. But we have a mastermind. We've talked about it already. We have a ultimate podcast mastermind. It's a limited spaces. And we're offering a guarantee that the investment that you make, you'll make back, because it's so low that if you don't make it back, your business isn't viable and we shouldn't be doing this. So, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but we're not even going to share the price with the mastermind because it's really an application. It has to be right for you. It has to be right for us. You have to fit, and we have to know that we're able to guarantee and help you. So the first one is, why don't you talk about that? Sure.
So the first one is really a launch with help from us specifically. So I have a program called the Ultimate Podcast Launch Formula. It's a DIY program, 7 steps to launch a podcast. In addition to that launch, we're going to give you an hour of our time. I think it's an hour. Is it an hour or 90 minutes? Either
90
way.
minutes.
Okay, we'll give you 90 minutes. If it wasn't 90 minutes before, it is now. It's a 90-minute consulting call where we actually walk through some of the strategy with you. You can just go through this. I mean, it includes a lot of the templates for building your show. It includes the entire template to build your show.
Basically everything you need.
Everything that you need in order to launch a show. The 37 easy ways to launch your show. We actually will walk through it with you step by step. So that is option number one. Let's see, did it advance? Here we go. So option number one is $997 or 3 payments of $365. The personal 90-minute session, the ultimate podcast launch formula, and access to all of our templates, how to invite guests on your show, all of the different apps that you need to use, all of the things that you need in order to launch your show, including a strategy session with us at $997.
I spent $1,000 to launch my show and did it incorrectly because I hired someone who wasn't an expert in podcasting. She didn't even have a podcast. I know that's bad on me, but it was in 2014. So she had a really good Twitter following, but that doesn't translate to podcasts. Okay. So,
and I just put in the box there the
link,
the offer, the link. Yeah, you can just click in the offer box right now.
So many successful people have gone through this program, and there's some testimonials here that we'll kind of just skip over right now because I know most of you already have a podcast. Why don't you talk about Lou real quick?
Sure. So Lou, as I told you before, he was our first client, not Lou Diamond Phillips, but just Lou Diamond. He has a show called Thrive Loud. And the formula requires zero popularity. As a matter of fact, neither Lou nor I are popular at all. Simply put, it's a system that took me from 0 to 300,000 in under 2 years with my podcast. It's truly the ultimate formula for podcasting. And with Lou, we held his hand. We went through the entire process with him. He helped us actually create this entire system.
All right. So what does it include? Again, just quickly, the apps and equipment, like things that you need, naming your show, show description, cover art. Again, I know most of you have already launched, but all the things. It includes all the things.
All the things.
Okay.
And if you need more details, just click on the webinar deals box. It's in the, let's see, it doesn't look like it's up over on that screen. So let's see if that is, oh, here we go. It is. Now it's up there.
All right. So if you want to click through and just take a look, it's all listed under what the different offers are.
Yep.
Okay. And so basically, I'm just going to quickly run through this because we want to answer any questions with you guys. The launch formula.
So this might be offer number 2. Is this offer number 2? I don't know. Yeah.
Yep. Offer number 2 is just the formula to do it on your own.
Right. So with the formula to do it on your own, the only thing that's excluded from that $997 is the consultation with the two of us. Yes, there is a call. It's more of a techniques call just to make sure you understand the process that you're going through. There is a launch checklist before you go through the launch. That's a $497 offer. So option 1 is $997. That includes a strategy call with JJ and I. Option 2, $497. There's no strategy call. It's more of a techniques call just to make sure that you understand what you have purchased. And that's $497 or 3 payments of $197. You can click on the box to the right that says webinar deals just so you have a handle on what those things are. And that would be just for those of you that have not yet launched a show. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is if you have an active show, and this is one of my clients, Virginia, if you can make friends, you can be a successful podcaster. Your success has nothing to do with actually being outgoing or having charisma. It actually has nothing to do with you at all. And that is so true. It's all about getting to know your guest, helping them shine, and building a relationship. That truly is the epitome of what a successful podcast is all about. Not helping you shine, but helping your guests shine.
All right. Now, if you already have a show, we've created something called the Ultimate Podcast Mastermind. And the reason is because we see so many podcasters, again, our friends, Joe and Matt, they surveyed 1,000 podcasters and they make an 85% made $0. And most people give up on their podcast 6-8 months, actually way before 6-8 months. But
12 episodes.
Yeah, 12 episodes in, people give up, which is why podcasting seems to be like, oh, everyone's doing it, and not that many people are successful.
They don't have a plan. There's no system.
Right.
There's no track record. There's no anything. And that's why we highly encourage you. Look, this is the business that I'm in, and I know I sound like a podcasting hammer and you're a podcasting nail. But for us, we know that the best way for people to get involved in podcasting is to have a system. And then beyond even the system for launching a show, it's the next step. So for us, we looked at that and thought, why don't people know about these couple of ways to make money podcasting? Every time I share with potential clients or even current clients, my guest to client strategy, it looks like a light bulb is going off in their head. Like, oh my God, I've never thought of this. And I agree. There was a little creativity that was involved in creating that system. But you have to understand that in order for you to be successful, it isn't just about launching a show. It's about plugging into a proven system that actually works, a system that we know that works because, like I said, I made every freaking mistake in the book. I still make a lot of mistakes, but I'll tell you, I make more yeses than nos. Not from a sales perspective, but I get more yeses. I've made more mistakes throughout the course of the last 5 years than I have had successful things. But the successful things have highly benefited me and the clients that tag along with me.
And with all of my shows, I've done a similar dance of exploration, testing, seeing what works. And again, I just see so many people doing so many things that don't serve them, and they don't know how to get specialized information to make it work. And it wasn't something that Turnkey was offering. And I said to Doug, let's make a mastermind so that people will be successful, so they don't give up on their podcast. Because it's super sad for when people do. So in our mastermind, what we're doing is we're going to help to choose and test for you the right business plan for your podcast. If you're already launched, we're going to take a look at the show and see whether or not you have the right plan in place and maybe how to pivot if you don't. We're gonna look at your message and how to master your message to leverage your community, if that's what you want, or mastering your message to convert guests into clients, if that's what you want. We're gonna look at all the different revenue streams that you have and how to implement more of them or accentuate and amplify more of them, the ones that fit your show, not you selling toilet paper, right? Like things that make sense to you.
I don't want to sell toilet paper.
Things that make sense to you, okay? Things that feel good to you, things that are organic. A sales process shouldn't be hard. It should be something that you enjoy doing because you know it helps somebody, and this product or service or thing that you have of somebody else's is amazing and you can't stop talking about it. You're just going to get paid to talk about it now. We're going to leverage joint ventures and affiliates. So I mentioned our newest member, Jared, who just signed up, and his the storytelling is one of the things that he specializes in. And the guy who potentially is coming on board, he is also doing things like audiobooks, and I thought the two of them could meet.
Yeah.
Jared could work with my clients, Jared could work with Turnkey clients. Like, we see joint venture opportunities already within the small group of people who've already joined our mastermind that we just opened up a couple of weeks ago. So we want to focus on how do we create this unit of people that support each other. And it may not be that we directly refer or create a joint venture, but we know the right person for you to joint venture with. So we're going to do that networking within that small niched group. We're also going to help you. One of the things that I don't know if it's on the next page or not, at the Pod Hacker Masterclass. So I talked about increasing SEO and organic search traffic. For me, because of who I am in my show, I only want people to buy my products and services who have listened to my show. So like Doug was saying, my high ticket offer at my last event, which by the way, wasn't that high, but it was the first time I was offering a high ticket offer like this ever before at my event. And I literally just did what we did right now. I literally pulled the sheets out and said, let's go over what this is. If anyone has any questions, let me know. And then the next day I stood up and I said, who wants to join me? And I had people rushing up to say, I want to join you. And I asked Doug, I said, did I pitch?
No.
How much time did I spend pitching?
None. It was amazing.
All I did was make an offer.
I was so mad at her.
All I did was make an offer because my people know me, they like me, and they trust me. Yeah. And if it was the right fit for them, they had no problem saying yes. So now the point of this story is to let you know that for me, I have determined that the best way for me to get new leads, again, is from my show. Well, how do you get people to my show? Through organic SEO searching and traffic. And we have Joe and Matt's podcast, Pod Hacker Masterclass. Pod Hacker Masterclass. We will, anyone that joins our mastermind gets the Pod Hacker Masterclass. And then, of course, like with any course, I don't know about you guys, but anytime you buy something, you're like, oh, I can do that on my own.
No, you can't.
You can, but do you?
I can't.
You can't, right? I can, but it takes a lot of willpower for me to force myself and very disciplined. But what I create for me all the time on every level for everything is accountability. If I don't have accountability, it doesn't get done. So we asked Joe and Matt if they'd be willing to work with us and be joint ventures to give us their Pod Hacker Masterclass to offer it to our mastermind members so we could all work work on it together.
I bet if we even kind of use the leverage, I bet they'd even come in and talk to the.
They're absolutely coming in and talking to the mastermind. So if you want to know how to make $1.8 million through
these guys
are
incredible. I learn every day from those that are around me in the podcasting space. They look at me sometimes and they're like, "How do you do what you do?" And I look at them and say, "How do you do what you do?" I mean, that is the beauty of where we're going. And what we really want people to do if they're seriously considering joining this mastermind is, I mean, I think it's so cool just to be able to work with like-minded people that have the same goals that we have, not necessarily the same dollar goals, better, worse, whatever, but just the same idea of positivity, and let's promote and let's get this thing going, and let's all work together to make this podcast something that will actually be successful for our business. The last thing that we want is somebody to come into either a mastermind or even taking a $497 course. The last thing I want is somebody to take a $497 course and fail at it. It's funny because I just sent out an email before this webinar, and it was like, we've had dozens of people that have signed up for our Ultimate Podcast Launch Formula, that $497 course that we were promoting earlier. And a number of people have not even gone into the course on day one. So I sent, but you already have a launch show. So I sent you the email, but it wasn't specific to you. And I keep thinking, I don't even want to take $497 from somebody just to pay me. So I sent out an email today to say, hey, I want to help you one-on-one or in a group or however I can help you. Let's get this show launched. That's kind of the same attitude I take with this mastermind. I want to work closely with a couple dozen people. I don't even think we have room for a couple dozen people.
No, we don't have.
How many spaces
15 is the limit.
15. So I want to work closely.
And now we don't have that much. Yeah.
Right. So now I want to work closely with 15 people, 10 people remaining in this mastermind. I want to work closely to make sure that the ultimate level of success is reached through podcasting. There is no barriers that stop anyone from being successful with podcasting. And for us to work together in order to do it, I mean, it's free coaching. I mean, it's not free, but it's free. It's coaching that you're going to get through this course. It's joint venture partnerships. It's collaborative efforts. It's all the stuff that will make you successful quickly. And the fact that there's a guarantee, I kind of thought a little bit on that one.
We didn't tell them about that yet. So we're not mentioning price, but because again, it has to be a qualification thing. Right. We'll just tell you what it includes. It includes 1 2-hour group mastermind call a month. It includes 1 60-minute call with either both of us or one of us, depending on who you need. Like if you want guest-to-client stuff, specific sales training based on that, then you're going to want to work with Doug probably a little bit more. If you want to build a community, you're going to want to work with me a little bit more. If you want both of us on every call, that's fine too. You get 1 full VIP day with us. That's 8 hours. It can be done virtually, especially now, or we can push it a little closer to the rest of the end of the year where we can do it together in person. You do 1 half VIP day, which is 4 hours. And again, that we can do right away, getting started and get that 4 hours doing virtually, and you get us both. You get the Pod Hacker Masterclass, which is $1,250. You get 2 in-person mastermind weekends. Tentatively, once we get the core group in, we will decide on the dates. But right now we're looking at the end of June and maybe early November or mid-November. And it's limited. We don't have 15 slots left. We probably have 10 slots left. If you sign up now, you get 1 month free, and we can start working with you right now. And you get to be on our podcasts and get you'll be on at least 1 podcast and get the advertising that goes along with that. So it's $1,000
I'll even throw in a pizza.
Okay. I'm sure that they're going to jump right now to get a pizza from you. Okay. So here's the thing. Here's the next little thing about our podcast, Mastermind. Like I said before, this is not about just you making money. This is about you making money that's right for you. I am who I am, and I can't not coach the way I coach, which means you're going to get the holistic mind, body, soul approach. It's going to get the life balance approach. I don't want you to kill yourself. I don't want your relationships to suffer. I don't want your health to go south because you're trying to make money. It has to be done in your zone of genius. We will probably be coaching people through the big leap. If I know me and I know us, we're going to talk about it. And we're giving you a guarantee. We are giving you a guarantee that you will make the money back. Again, the investment is so low for 1 year of education of our time, of so much of our time and of the other people helping you, that if we can't make that money, if we can't help you make that money back. And for a lot of you, it's like 1 or 2 clients.
I don't even know what the offer is, but I'm going to double it right now because, I think it's just too good.
Basically, I mean, really, because when I looked at it, I thought this is our first time doing it. The price will be higher next year, but I thought, how can we get some people involved and let's test this thing and let's see how it goes. Let's get some testimonials. We're ready to dedicate our time to helping you be a successful podcaster in the way that's right for you, not in a way that's a plug and play from somebody else, but the right way for you. So there's a few spaces left. You can go to Turnkey Podcast. Just click the webinar deals link here in the on the screen, and it'll take you to the form that you can fill out, and you'd have a call with us, and we'll see if it's the right thing for you. But we are going to make your investment back.
Just so you know, just scroll down to the bottom. If you do click on the button that says webinar deals, scroll down to the bottom. You'll scroll through the option 1, option 2, and then you'll see the mastermind. We really, really, really want to promote that mastermind. Yes, the course is great. Yes, I created the course to get podcasts launched, but I want to help you take that podcast to the next level. And if you're brand new at podcasting and you haven't yet launched your show, but you have a process that you're going through right now, whether it's through me or through somebody else, just know that the opportunity to collaborate, joint venture partner, have affiliate relationships, all of those things, like guest to client strategy, the things that we were talking about, those are all things that this mastermind is really you're going to get a one-on-one, every month, direct coaching, group meetings, all sorts of fun stuff, and pizza.
And I'll tell you the reason, again, why we did this was out of a need. So this is a testimonial from the first person that joined, and she was a client. She's a client of Turnkey. She was a client of mine separately, and she launched her show. Turnkey is very, very good at helping you to launch your show. You can you can launch your show. Okay, you launch your show, then what? I wanted to help people launch and be successful in a package that guaranteed it, that wasn't going to be in 3 months. You're not going to be. You could make a lot more money in 3 months. You could make a lot more money next week if we started coaching you. But we can guarantee in 12 months, we will figure it out. And in 12 months, we will find multiple streams of revenue for you. So this was Yvonne, and she said I was an instant full body yes when she was given the opportunity to join, because for so many reasons. In podcast land, she had a concept, but her concept wasn't the right concept for her. I'm going to jump down to my podcast was 100% intended to generate a substantial income, and it wasn't. So if you're someone who went into this thinking I'm going to make money podcasting and you're not, please, please listen. She spent hours pouring her heart and soul into highly quality, valuable content, but without an ROI, and it wasn't sustainable. So she put a pause on her show, and then she came to our course. And
I don't think I've ever been the answer to somebody's prayers. That's pretty
good.
Oh,
mine, honey. Keep it mine. And she, the icons, us. And we are very deeply committed to your success. That's why we do what we do. And she trusts us. And then the promise that she'd have our partnership in making her successful in 12 months, that was guaranteed, was music to her ears. She just doesn't want to feel overwhelmed. She wants the support. And she was like, here, please help me. So I'm going to skip to the end. If you're thinking someday, and we all know, again, our target audience, if you will, for helping people right now are those of you that have already launched, that you can already see, I need to hone this in a little bit more. I need to understand a little bit more about who I am in this space, and feel a little bit more confident, and at the same time trusting and flexible to see the opportunities, instead of going in like, I know I'm going to sell this and I got to find the audience to give this to. That's not really how podcasts work. Some people probably can do that very well, but I know most people have to pivot a little bit. And I'm really good at pivoting and repurposing. Doug has learned how to pivot, and you've probably pivoted in your life as well. If you want some serious support, if this feels right for you, if you think that we can help you, if you like who we are and what we do, I promise you we will be dedicated to your success. Go ahead and fill out the form to apply, or if you haven't launched yet and you want our help, we'd be happy to help you there too. You can get the launch formula plus the 90-minute strategy, which is going to give you your business plan, and pick out, again, those parts of your business and the opportunities that you have and the relationships that you have to really make this an easier journey. We've had to learn the hard way on our own, and had someone been around like me that I knew that was about the same price, like back in the day, but I learned the hard way. Again, I spent $1,000 on a launch of 12 shows, and didn't know what I was doing, and had to relaunch later. So
the application, just so you know, whether you fill out, it's going to end up in a phone call with either JJ or myself or both of us. And it's just to take a deeper dive into what some of your goals are for podcasting, maybe help you see a bigger picture in what you could actually accomplish with your show. And then we all make a decision together. It's not just, yes, I want to do this, and then we take your money and you're good. It's, yes, I want to do this. And we have to make sure that you're a good fit for what we feel like the program is all about. We really want to make sure that those that are coming into the mastermind have their sights set on success with their podcast and don't just want to spend the money because there's a no risk guarantee. I want somebody that's willing to take the no risk guarantee. Yes. And I think it's great, but you're also going to have to do the work that's involved. And for us, we want people that are involved, that are ready to roll their sleeves up and get to work.
So at this point, if anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer some questions.
Yeah, I don't know where the questions would appear. I guess up on this screen they would happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anybody has any questions, if you want to know anything, we'll hang out here for just a couple of minutes. And my tea is gone, so I'm gonna have to go get more tea. But if you need to
I've been really good rationing my water.
You really have been. That's really good.
Yeah. Any questions, anybody?
And if not, we'll say goodbye, but we'll give you guys another 60 seconds or so to enter in any questions. If you want, I think the offer is still up on the page. It is, if the offer is up there. If you want to, you can still head over to the webinar deals button, click the button now. You can see the 3 offers that are made for the coaching, for the Ultimate Podcast Launch Formula, the formula with the strategy call, or the mastermind application. And feel free to take advantage of any of those 3 that you feel would be appropriate for you. If there is no questions, and I don't see any questions here, why don't we go ahead and wrap it up then?
Okay. Well, if you have any questions after this, send us an email, shoot us an email, take a look at the webinar again. We'd love to help you if we're the right coaches for you. And if you're ready to really make some good waves with your podcast with a guarantee on the back end for 12 months. So we'd love to chat with you. And if not, best of luck, whatever you're doing. Hope you learned something today, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.